presence of so many Unchi women. So today we're going to continue. We started last week, and so I will review it just briefly for those who were not with us. On the same lines as taking responsibility for what's happening in our internal world, we have also the opportunity and the responsibility to take care of what's happening in the energetics and in the world around us as we set up the environment that we want to be able to operate in. And it is sometimes we just rush through our lives and we don't think about how impactful it is to have our environment serving us, not us serving our environment. So there are so many small ways in which we can realign our external space so that we're optimally receiving the balance and the peacefulness that's possible in our external space. In the Indian Eastern tradition, it's called Vastu, and it is the same thing actually out of Vastu, which was written about in the Vedas thousands of years ago, came the Chinese version, cultural version of Feng Shui. So it has many similar overlapping concepts, but as each of these teachings are taken into new cultures, of course, the new cultures adapt the teachings to fit with what is happening in their culture, what are the priorities, what are the superstitions, what are the teachings that they're bringing together. So we'll see differences. Even last week, Lydia mentioned to me that her teacher who taught her, I think the chimes, I think he was a chime teacher, that he had told her one direction for sleeping, and the Vedas teach us the exact opposite. So I say, take all of these teachings in and try them, but the ultimate teacher is yourself, that you have to experience. If I shift things around, does it actually make me feel calmer, cleaner, more open spaciousness in my life, or is it disorienting to me? Because you ultimately should be and can be the arbitrator of what works for you and what doesn't. That we should never simply accept what somebody else tells us, whether it's a sacred book or it's a teacher, or it doesn't matter, that ultimately the way we understand something to be true is through experience. So until we experience something or we come as close as we can to an experience of a teaching or something that's been told to us, it's very difficult for us to decide if it suits us or not. And we all have that innate power and that innate knowing. And our aim is to cultivate that to where we know instantly if something's working for us or not. And we don't have to go to another source to validate it. That we have an internal thermostat and an internal knowing and an internal inspiration that tells us if something works or not. So in the world of Vastu, we're looking at how are we aligning ourselves with our external world? How are we taking the directions? It's primarily built around direction and the elements, the 5 elements. And how are we utilizing direction and the elements to create a peacefulness in our environment? And so I'll just go over the first several that we talked about last week, just as a review. The first was to declutter our environment. That stagnant energy comes from accumulated clutter. So you know, even in our enjoyment of maybe a little collection of some kind of little trinkets that are really pleasing, it's also very nice to just put those away for a few months, to decide I'm going to clean off this tabletop and have nothing on it for weeks or a month or whatever you feel like. Experience your space with as little as possible as clutter, and then watch as things accumulate and special things come around and you want to have them in your space. It's beautiful, but try it both ways. Try decluttering, cleaning, and leaving open spaciousness with nothing, and see how that changes your decision-making, your focus, your creativity, and see that if that works for you. But decluttering is a very big piece in the both the Feng Shui and the Vastu traditions. The second was to add water to our space, because water soothes us. It inspires us. It connects us to the flow of the divine feminine. And of course, we are a large percentage water. So it makes sense that having running water, the sound of water, the visual of water around us is very soothing. So there's so many ways to include that. And we spoke last week about not even having to have water, running water, that actually just a photograph or a painting of moving water or of a lake or a pond or whatever can be as soothing and inspiring to us as a little fountain. So it's up to you. Where are your senses aligned in terms of what is most impactful? Are you visual? Are you auditory? How are you responding to your environment? If you're an auditory person, then you're going to want to make sure you've got sounds going on in the background of mantras and chants that are soothing, very low, but that are happening in your space, because that is a good trigger for you. If you're a visual person, you want to look at what are the colors I'm incorporating, how are things laid out. So we have to look at what are the places from which we operate. And everyone's different, and there isn't a right or a wrong. It's how you know yourself. The spiritual journey is coming into awareness with ourselves. Until we know what our pieces are and how we fit together, we can't incorporate the interior or the exterior world to work. We have to pay attention to ourselves and what are our preferences, what are our triggers, what are the things that just make us take a deep breath and just sigh into something. It might be tactile, it might be visual, it might be auditory, it might be a scent. But we have to pay attention, ladies, to what it is that is, what is our chemistry? We're each uniquely different. The next area that we talked about was just rearranging furniture. And as silly as that sounds, energy gets stuck in the corners around furniture. Anything that's not a circle, energy gets stuck in a corner. So moving things away from the walls, like 6 to 8 inches away from the walls, and allowing yourself a different flow. So just push that darn sofa over to the other side of the room. See what happens. See what happens when you push a table that was in the middle over closer to the wall so that you have more space to walk. Set up your table where you're eating in a different direction. Sit normally, maybe 2 or 3 of you sit on the same 3 seats every time you sit down. Change it up. Everybody can sit at a different seat. Try different ways of being in the same environment, because it changes not only how you see things, but how you're experiencing them. And our aim is to have our experiences be as broad as possible. It's not to get into a routine. Coming back to the familiar is limiting to us. Allowing ourselves to go into what is not familiar is expanding, sometimes painfully, sometimes kicking and screaming, but it expands us. It's very difficult to expand when we keep things same, because there's nowhere near to move. There's nothing new to push. So just tackle it in that way of moving your furniture around, even if it's only a couple of end tables or a side table. See how that flow feels for you. I think for me, it's a fresh look. I look at a room in a fresh way. My husband used to say to me that it was a good thing he wasn't blind, because I moved the furniture around all the time. And he said, I would never know how to get around the room. And I could move anything. It didn't matter how big it was. I figured out if you put things on, if you lift up a corner of anything heavy and you put a dish towel under it, you can pull it. You can pull it anywhere. And I still do. I move every time I come back to India. I rearrange all the furniture, because I want to have a fresh engagement with it so that my mind doesn't go to an old routine. I want to have a new routine. I want to have a new perspective, because I want everything that comes in to have a new angle. Because until I expand 360, I'm only seeing one part of the equation. The next is tackling your desk, organizing. If you want to be in a creative process, if you're writing or you're doing some sort of an artistic, creative endeavor and you want to be at your desk doing it, rearranging, taking off, clearing, all of that helps to just change your mindset a little so that you can look at the creativity from a different vantage point. And the last thing that we talked about was sleeping. So we're taught in the Vedas that we should sleep with our head to the south, if it's possible, in your room. If it's not, then going to the east and the west and avoiding your head being facing the north. If your bed faces the north, your head faces the north in your bed, and you sleep really well, I wouldn't move it. It's doing fine. But if you notice that you have some difficulty in sleeping and your bed is not headed so that your head when you're sleeping is either south, east, or west, then I might consider moving it to one of those three if it's facing north. So it's all about how are you adapting. That might not be your trigger point, the direction of your bed, but it might be. So we keep these things in mind so that we are taking advantage of the flow that's happening as the earth is moving on its axis. And as this earth is relating to the solar systems that are out there, there's an energy that's happening. And we're trying to relate to and be in relationship with that so that there's an ease of this physical body moving through time and space. This is why we do this, because then when that ease is happening, we feel a sense of peacefulness, even when there's disruption. Another thing to consider are TVs and stereos or any kind of audio. It puts out certain electromagnetic rays. And so better to not have TVs and stereos and music in every single room that you're in, like to have at least a room that is a little bit free from that. One of the important things you can do is to put plants in the rooms where you have TVs and stereos. They are really good at absorbing the electromagnetic rays that come out from all these different things. So really utilizing plants, they're not only good for that, they're also good, of course, just for our breathing. They're good for the color green, is very soothing. And having something alive in your space that's alive with you is really pleasurable. So consider where you place your plants, and small trees you might have in a pot or whatever can be really room changing to how you have an experience. Another thing is the central area of our home or your office. In our understanding, that carries a very strong significance to it's the heartbeat of the building, the house or the office. So whatever the central area, it might be your kitchen where everybody gathers. It might be where you relax. Maybe it's a study. In Sanskrit, it's called the Brahmastan. It means the center of awareness. So where is that space in your home or in your office where you feel the heartbeat is happening? And paying special attention to that space will establish it. You'll want to be looking at color and looking at the orientation of the furniture and just how you enter and exit it, because that space has the potential, because it taps into the heartbeat of where you're living, to be more impactful in your life as you come and go from that space. So establish, what is my heartbeat in my home or in my office? Where is that space? It might be your bedroom. You might do a lot of things out of your bedroom. It may be that you read and study in your bed, or you have a small sofa in your bedroom or something. So it's not one specific room. It's where you live into that space, where you live into it. Another area that we look at is color, because color creates ambiance. And when we're looking at wanting a specific space, a room, to have a certain energy for us, we can, aside from how we put in our furniture, what kinds of plants we put, what sounds are coming out of that space or we're putting into that space, having a color impact can also really shift the energy. So just as for fun, there are a few colors I want to talk about. One is violet, because it's calming and soothing. So you may not paint all the walls violet, but you might decide to do some throw pillows or one chair or a painting, or, there are many different ways of introducing color. It doesn't have to be that you have a violet sofa in your living room or in your bedroom or wherever, but it's calming and soothing, and it aids in our awareness. And since we are working towards having a heightened awareness of all things, that's how we move in our spiritual development, is that we have this awareness of understanding and seeing and recognizing movement around us. So violet contributes to that. So it's a wonderful way, even a lampshade that's violet, anything. It's a great accent color in a meditation room, really is supportive to a spiritual practice. Another great color is indigo. Love indigo. It represents the depth of consciousness. So it will support your intuition. So also a really great color to bring into a meditation room, or a room that you want to be really relaxing in. So a room that you go into specifically just to allow yourself to sink in. It's also blue, not specifically indigo, but blue in general is a great color for a bedroom, because it decreases blood pressure and our respiratory rate. which is why it's so good for meditation, because it's in concert with meditation is bringing your heart rate down. Blue, the color, is also doing that. So they're working in concert. So they're very nice to have together. Green balances the warm and the cool colors. And because it's the predominant color in nature, it stimulates this sense of harmony and calmness and healing and balance. So bringing any greens in around you, which is why plants are so fabulous to have, but bringing anything that has a shade of green in it can really be a soothing shift in our space. It's really good to use in healing spaces. Anyone who has dedicated a space in their house to healing, which may be your meditation room or where you have your altar, and it may only be a corner. Maybe you've allocated a corner of a room for this, and maybe it's in that way you've incorporated it. It might not be a whole room, but taking into mindfulness that as we move through different spaces in our home and in our office and wherever we spend our time, that you can move in and out of different vibrations, that the whole thing doesn't have to all be white or all be red or all be green or all be blue, that you can have spaces, even in just one big space, you can change it up and have smaller spaces broken out that are the ones that you've identified as where you want to sit for something or where you want to be stimulated. Or so we have to take responsibility for that. Yellow, it's restful, communication, and concentration. So it can also be really lovely in a bedroom. It improves and enhances relationships. So if anybody's having any relationship issues, you might want to just add a little yellow in your home. Orange stimulates our vibrations. It is a light, high vibration. And it is something that is happy. It makes people happy. It's a social color. It stimulates optimism. So it's good for any room that's used for social gatherings. And again, it can be small things. Maybe it's an orange vase. Maybe in the kitchen for stimulating digestion, it's a beautiful bowl of oranges, fresh oranges. That we don't have to just paint the whole room orange, but how are you incorporating subtle ways of using color? Painting one wall of your dining room is lovely for stimulating your whole family's digestion, or placing a bowl of oranges on the dining room table can do it also. Red is the longest wavelength and it has the lowest frequency. It stimulates our psychology, and it produces some wonderful qualities of strength, courage, steadfastness, but it can also be disturbing to people. So you want to be careful in using red. It's such a strong, powerful color, and it can make you feel a little bit like you can't calm down. But in the right space, it's fabulous in an exercise room. It motivates us to have activity. It's also known to overcome levels of like anxiety or just mental, kind of you're in a funk. Red, so maybe you don't put red in your room. Maybe you wear red on a day that you're feeling a little bit just like, I'm not up to par today. Then you put on a beautiful red scarf or a pair of red shoes. I think I've seen Desiree in red shoes, just something that is very, fun. And red will lighten the mood for you. How we use color is one way that we can lighten our mood. And why not? It's out there. It's part of nature. It's part of what the world has to offer for us. Why not use it? Why not use it? And lastly, using small crystals. So I'm sure you've all seen there are many beautiful crystal stores in Northern California and out in Santa Cruz. The little tiny smaller crystals that are often on just a string, you can hang them. Hanging crystals around a room, placing them on a tabletop, of course, is wonderful. But those really small ones that are the clear crystals that are cut, and you hang them where the sunlight will hit on it, and then it has beautiful reflections all over the room and it moves. Just playfulness. We should be using playfulness in our space so that we feel that energy of playfulness and we start having that be part of how it is that we're living into the world, that we don't want to be so serious. We don't want to be so burdened by whatever we're carrying. We all have things we're carrying. Everybody's carrying, whether it's a health issue or a relationship issue or a financial issue or a block of creativity or whatever it happens to be. Everyone on this call is carrying one or several burdens. One or several burdens. I could turn you all off of your off of mute and you would all be able to add what it is that you're carrying into the world. And we're looking for ways not to remove ourselves from that, not to jettison it, because life will just bring something else along. That's how life is. But how do we stay in an uplifted way so that we feel buoyant? I want to be buoyant. I don't want to go under. I want to be buoyant. I don't have to be happy all the time, but I want to be buoyant. And using the external world that we are in, that we spend so much time in a way that's conducive to supporting that, is just smart. It's just smart. So that's what I have to say. I will add all of these things to our email this week, so that you might imagine picking up a few of them and just shifting up your environment and shift up how it is that you move through your day within that environment, and it will change your perspective. My lovely ladies.
Thank you, my dear.
You're welcome.
That was beautiful. So I want to bring in the lightness and the ease with a mantra and a mudra series. So don't make it complicated. There's a lot of movements, and I taught it just yesterday in class, and I got reminded how much I love this movement. And it's really moving the space around us. So the first mudra is we bring our hands, and as if we want to push water over our shoulders. So get ready, like releasing the burden that we're carrying. And then we bring all fingertips, they touch, pointing down. We bring them up. When we come to our third eye, the point between the eyebrows, we come to a triangle. And we look through this triangle out into the world. And then we bring the world back into our third eye. The back of our hands touch, they rotate, and we give our energy out to the world. And then we bring our hands back into prayer pose, coming back home to ourselves. From here we go into the lotus. The left hand moves to the left side, as if I take like some water out of the bowl of my left hand, and I splash it over my head and around, resting my right hand on my left shoulder. Left hand moves around, and I bring my left hand to my right shoulder, and then I come back to my heart. So we will do this with music. Keep your eyes open, make it joyful. Some movements, sometimes you will be a little behind, or it doesn't matter. Yeah, just be with it. And then you can enjoy the mantra. The mantra is very simple. It's Sat Narayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satanam. So it's really calling on the water, on the fluidity, bringing in ease and joyfulness, the theme of today.
Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satnam. 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 Satnarayan Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam 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 Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan 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 Satnam
Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam
Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satnam Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satnam Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satnam Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satnam
Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam Satnarayana Vaheguru Hari Narayana Satnam
Satnarayan Vaheguru, Hari Narayan Satnam. 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 Satnarayan Vaheguru, Hari Narayan Satnam.
And just keep your hands on your heart center. Long, deep breathing. And fill your body with prana through the inhalation. Consciously release the apana, the used air. Imagine the breath like a wave coming in and going out. The Sat Narayan. In the outer space, the Vastu could reflect our inner space and vice versa. So if we keep the outer flow going, it enhances our inner flow. And if we keep our inner flow going, it enhances our outer flow. And we bring our hands to prayer pose. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Namala. Have a beautiful weekend. Great week.
Goodbye, sweet ladies. Love you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.